welcome to this preview show here for Probellum's Throwdown show this Friday night here in Newcastle. I'm joined by Probellum's Sam Jones and Paul Smith, and we're going to just go over the fights that happen in Friday night. We have to start off obviously with the main event of the evening, Lewis Ritson, and he's headlining against Dejan Slatikanin. It's an important fight, but what do you think is most important for this fight for Lewis Ritson?
For Lewis Ritson, for me, he's got to keep winning. He's just got to keep winning and defeating and removing any object in his way at the moment and any opponent that comes there, because he's had his upsets now, he's had his mishaps, he can't afford any more. If he wants to do anything in boxing from now on in, I'm not trying to be harsh saying this, he has to completely stay unbeaten and do what we all feel that Lewis Ritson can do. I think he's a very good fighter. I think he's a little bit underrated with how well he can think as well around the ring, but his aggression, especially when he was down at lightweight blasting everyone away, you know, he's very underrated and one to keep your eye on. And
yeah, because the stakes are quite high for Lewis, because as Paul's saying, he can't afford to have any more mistakes.
No, definitely not. He boxed fantastically well last time. There was a lot of pressure on him because he came off a bad upset. The last time he boxed in the arena that he's going to be fighting in this weekend, he used his jab really well. Because I remember watching Lewis Ritson in the O2 and he was destroying people that called him the Geordie Golovkin. So there was a lot of pressure on him coming onto this. Like Paul said, he can't afford to lose. So all the pressure's on him again. And as I say, again, Paul said it, alluded to there, he can't lose again, like in his career. Cause they're looking at fights with potentially with O'Hara Davis. They're looking at St James's Park. That can't happen if he has any slip-ups.
Do you think this is Lewis's last sort of run at a title? Like, is this the last time he can go on a run towards world titles?
yeah, very much so. I said that before. You know, that's what I mean by he can't afford any slip-ups. He's had them now, and granted it was when there was no fans, and he is reliant on a big crowd. And these Geordies are very passionate and get behind their own, and it's one of the best atmospheres you'll experience up here on a big fight night. And they're crying out for a world champion. They're crying out for someone to just get behind and back and go and support. And Lewis Ritson could be the man to do it.
I mean, it's probably the most talked about division at the moment that he's in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as I say, there's so many fights being spoken about, but he's got a tough job on Saturday. He could have took an easier fight than this, to be honest with you, but he chose to take on this opponent. He's renowned for not turning down opponents, but he has to win, and he has to win well, I think. I mean, he got through the last fight. Don't know what you thought, Paul, but he boxed really well. But I think he'll look to close the show and do it in some style. He's going to have a big crowd there on Friday, and he needs to put on a serious show to show people that it depends. Like, if you say it like, or if he did lose, he could still carry on, but it's like, this is like, if he's got any aspirations to box at world level, he has to win on Friday and win well.
It'll seriously derail any plans he has. You know, people would always question whether he carried the power he had, which was devastating down at the weight below, up to his current weight where he's at now, and we need to still see more evidence of that. I want to see the old Lewis Ritson who will blast through people rather than just boxing within himself, which I feel like he has done. So I am excited to see him on Friday.
Providing he puts on a good performance, we mentioned O'Hara Davis. He's actually coming up to watch the fight. He's got his eyes set on the winner of this fight. So that should be good if that's the sort of progression of fights after this.
Yeah, it's a fight I'd like to see. O'Hara Davis is very awkward. I think Lewis Ritson is the better fight out of the two all rounder, but O'Hara Davis is very difficult to beat because of his style. He's awkward, he's got big long arms, he's strong, he can punch as well. You know, he's not the most liked character in British boxing, but I think he thrives on that sometimes. I think he sort of needs that, and it'd certainly be he'd relish playing the bad guy in this fight and in that role if we can get the fight happening up here in Newcastle in Ritson's hometown.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the fact that it's in Newcastle. It seems to be a sort of golden era for boxing up here in the northeast at the moment, and it's that Probellum in particular have signed so many fighters from up here. You know, who do you think that Lewis Ritson is sort of leading the charge of those fighters up here? Yeah,
he is. I'll be honest, it's hanging by a thread because of he has had a few upsets in his career, but he's still there. He's still the leading ticket seller. You've got Pat McCormack, even Troy now, who sold a lot of tickets for Friday, but Lewis is still there. He's on this run, and like what we've just said there, he has to keep winning because if he loses again at this kind of level, he won't be. That's his challenge for a world title will not be there anymore. He has to win, and as I say, win well.
And the fact that you've just mentioned a few names from sort of Newcastle area, for people who haven't seen boxing in Newcastle and in the northeast, it's something different, isn't it? The crowd is something different up here.
The crowd's brilliant, and they get behind their own. I think it's probably to do with the city, with the football. They've only got one major team, and they certainly get behind them. Newcastle Newcastle can be fighting and battling in 18, 19, 20 position and still have a full sold out stadium week in, week out, and they can be doing well like they was in the 90s, and they're so passionate about their own, but particularly in the boxing, they haven't had many world champions to sing about over the years, and if they can only get one or two to back like this current crop that we've got at the minute, then you can see good times happening up here again. The good, it's a good working class city. It's a fighting city. It's a big sporting city. It's always been known very similar to what we are in the northwest, of your Manchesters, your Liverpools, and like good working class towns and cities with people, but they just haven't had the main fighters to get behind, and once they do, it'll be a domino effect. Success beats success. Once one does it, the rest will do it. It's certainly got a massive chance with the McCormack twins, but I feel he can probably get one just before then.
Yeah, because we've obviously mentioned the McCormack twins. Pat is fighting on Friday night, making his pro debut. We've got Troy Williamson, Lewis Ritson. There's quite a big crop of fighters. Is there anyone in particular that excites you out of the crop?
Yeah, they all excite me. Mark Dickinson, but it's like they're all at certain levels. Pat can be moved a bit faster because Pat's had an extensive amateur career. I genuinely think he'll be one of the best fighters to ever come out of this country from all the credentials that he has. I've watched him over the years sparring, of what he's won. He's completely barking mad if you've ever met him, and his brother. If they don't get a world champion out of this crop of talent from the northeast now, something's gone drastically wrong here. This is as you say, the golden era of boxing up here, and Probellum, we're fortunate we've got the vast majority of them, so it's going to be a really exciting ride up here, and long may the shows continue up here.
Definitely. Well, Pat McCormack is making his pro debut on Friday night. Is he the real deal? Obviously, we know what he achieved as an amateur, Olympic silver medalist. There's a lot of pressure on him, there's a lot of hope with him. Is he the real deal?
We saw Peter McGrail on the weekend in Dubai, and he was always one where you think, could he do it in the pros? He's certainly doing it. He's took to it like a duck to water. With Pat, I think he's tailor-made for the pros. I think, and Luke, I think the way they both fight, the aggression that they've got, they're complete all-round fighters, and I think they will take to it well. But again, we won't know until they actually do it. And that's what we'll find out with Pat on Saturday night, and then Luke hopefully sometime soon.
And we got Ben Rees also making his pro debut. How excited are you about seeing him?
Yeah, really good. He's got a really good amateur career. He's well talked about on the circuit, tailor-made for the pros. I'm really excited what he can do. And as I say, it'll be a bit slower, like his progression through the pros than someone like Pat McCormack, but he will also. If he doesn't win a world title as well, that's surely his aim. There's no ceiling for what he can achieve. Ben Rees is a very, very good. I know he was sparring Lerone Richards, and Lerone was telling me what a good fighter he was in Dave Caldwell's gym. So, again, it's high hopes for all of them.
Do you think they're going to have some sort of debut jitters? Very experienced, both of them amateur, but do you think that now it's the programme, it's a big stage they're on? Do you think they're going to have some jitters there? Probably
not, no. I think they'll have dreamt about this moment for years, and with the way amateur boxing is now, it's sort of overlapping with the WSB, with the no head guards. You're sort of having your last few amateurs maybe at a level where you're fighting against good pros who are coming back to the amateurs, and it's daft. I don't like it. I think you should be amateur or professional. I don't agree with pros going in the amateurs, but I'm old school. Doing the pros and I'm old school, and that's me. But they've had a few fights without the headgear on in the WBS, and they've also obviously. When I explained this to Peter McGrail on the weekend, your last 5 amateur bouts are against the elite in the world, and you turn professional, you have to fight them journeymen. You have to start off near the bottom to build your way up, to build your engine, to build your fitness, your stamina, your endurance to do the rounds, and the toughness of the professionals compared to the amateurs. So it's all a learning process, but I can't see any jitters creeping in from either of them McCormacks, especially Pat on Saturday or Friday.
They should be good. Right, we're looking at Troy Williamson, who is we've got the British title, and he's fighting Mason Cartwright. Troy Williamson had a fantastic performance to win the title against Ted Cheeseman. How good is he in the division, sort of worldwide at the moment?
I think, as I say, with Troy, he was like a slow burn. He had an early on like a controversial draw on his record. People kind of not turned away from Troy, but they kind of dismissed him as a top level where he can actually get to. And even the fight against Ted Cheeseman, I always thought he had a chance because Troy's very determined, and he went there and he absolutely smashed him to bits, really, didn't he? It was a close fight thing, but Troy kind of got a second win, didn't he, and ended up closing the show in one of the fights. I think did it win Fight of the Year? It was definitely a contender for Fight of the Year. It was unbelievable. So Troy's in a wonderful position, but this guy here that's coming to fight Mason Cartwright, it's a huge opportunity for him, and Troy needs to bring himself back up again and put on another good performance and keep that motivation. He sold a lot of tickets, going to be a lot of people there making a lot of noise for him, and then he can move through the levels. He's looking at European title next, into the world scene, because he's ready now. I think he's 30 years old, so he's more than ready.
I'm lucky because I've had to see both of the fighters that are fighting sparring with my brother Liam.
Yeah.
Liam's main sparring partner for the Anthony Fowler fight, which was obviously Troy's fight for the British against Cheeseman, was Troy, and he was in our gym a lot. He was sparring really well, and he showed us something in the sparring that we thought, you know what, he's got a bit more of a chance than I thought he did, because I wrote Ted Cheeseman off so many times in his fights, but I didn't think he'd get through.
Same.
I didn't think he'd win, and he kept proving me wrong. And I said to Cheeseman on the way in, I'll never back against you again, I don't think, because you proved me wrong every single time. But the one time that I did think, well, you know what, I think Cheeseman may have a bit too much. Troy come through and showed us what he could do. He was just on a mission that night. He was never going to be defeated, but you know, people will know, and people watching this will know, that winning a title is very, very difficult to do, but keeping it's even more difficult. You have to work harder. You're now the hunted. What he felt that night is what Mason will be feeling going in the ring on this night, and it's a massive opportunity for Mason Cartwright. Can he do it? You know, it's against him, and he's not the favourite, and Troy is the favourite for the reason, but as we've seen with the Cheeseman fight, anything can happen.
Yeah, do you think Mason will be going into this with hopes of you winning that British title? That's what a lot of fighters aim is to do. They dream of that from when they were little. Is this going to be sort of his biggest fight and the only focus for him, whereas Troy might be looking further ahead?
That's what I mean. That's what everyone can be guilty of. This is everything now. This is the end of the line for Mason Cartwright. If he wins this British title, that's his dreams achieved, and then that's the bonus from then. And I'm not putting him down, saying that the British title is a great level, and if Troy looks past this, trying to concentrate on European titles, world titles, you can come unstuck. You have to give everything you've got. That's why I'm saying it's more difficult keeping a title than it is winning a title. If you can defend your title successfully, then you've done well, and you will have worked very hard to do so, because there's so many things that can deter you and sway your mind from your initial focus and your initial task, as in future fights being talked about in further down the line for more money, for this, for that. Got to stay focused on the job in hand, which is Mason Cartwright.
That's what I was saying. This is his world title fight, isn't it? This is not as big as it can be, because obviously if he wins, he can move on, but it's going to be a full crowd there. They're all for Troy. Everything's against him. It's on television. You can't get a bigger moment. It's the biggest moment in his career. Like, he's going to throw absolutely everything, and he's got nothing to lose. So it's all the pressure's on Troy.
Providing it does go to plan and he wins on Friday night, do you think that he's ready for the sort of world title eliminator fights? Do you think he's that level?
I don't think there's much of a rush. He's not too old. He's only just won the British title. You know, I said before in this conversation, I'm old school, but what happened to the days of trying to win the British outright and having a couple of defences? There's some good kids in that weight. There's some very good fighters in that weight that they can have good domestic dust-ups, which will be probably a little bit above British level, or the old, what they consider would be British level, because there's a good crop of fighters in that weight division. And
do you see anyone in particular you'd want?
No, I always thought the Fowler fight would have been good for him, but Fowler's obviously gone up now to middleweight, but there's still some good fighting around the weight, where there was two good ones on the same night with Metcalf and everything. So there is fights out there to have just for the British title. We can gain valuable experience over a 12-round period and a 12-week camp. And people forget it's the work you do in them 12 weeks leading up to that fight what counts for a lot. Even if you're knocking out the first round, you've learned a lot in them 12 weeks.
I think he was out sparring Kell Brook as well,
yeah,
wasn't he?
He's had loads of experience. Well, and he's a fit lad, he's naturally fit, he's got a good little team around him, good people, and he seems very humble and like he wants to do well. And for me, I don't see the rush just yet. Don't wonder if you're going to be ready when you get there. Make sure you're ready when you get there, and you'll know by the next two fights that you have, hopefully at this level. That's what I'd advise Troy to do anyway.
If you were part of his team, would you advise him to stay around British level? Like
what I said with Paul, I said it with, I don't want to bring it up with Joe when he boxed Daniel Dubois. I didn't think Daniel Dubois had a middle fight. I think he boxed a below par Nathan Gorman at the time, but he didn't have any, like, he was knocking people over. I know Troy's had some tough fights, but like Paul said, it's a tough division. So if you have those type of fights, defend your British title, you're kind of preparing yourself for the levels to come. So that I would do what Paul said. I would defend the title a couple of times, pack out these arenas with all these lads, build the fan base, and then you're prepared to go through the levels.
Well, moving on to Thomas Patrick Ward, who's now 31-0 with one draw. That's a lot of experience. He's got a very, very good record. But there's not much noise around him, really. There's not much hype around him. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's not happened yet for him?
Probably low down in the weight, the featherweight, and he's probably got. I haven't looked, and I should really know this, but he might have one of the longest unbeaten runs in British boxing at the moment, because it was Kell Brook and Kevin Mitchell at one time years ago, and then obviously they lose and things happen. But it's 31-0 is very tough to do, and not many fighters will do it. And he's very, very talented, as he showed in his last fight. I really enjoyed watching him and commentating on the fight.
Probably stole the show, didn't he? He put
on a masterclass. It was a great display, and I'm not just saying that to sound dramatic and to sound like I'm bigging up because he's one of our fighters, but if that was any other fighter in the States putting on a performance, boxing that well against an opponent that he was matched against in the way he was, then we're going to be ranting and raving about it. And maybe that's why he doesn't get the plaudits that he deserves, because of how lower down the weight he is, or he hasn't had his big shot yet. But when he gets his big shot, he'll be ready. Very experienced for 31-0, but don't forget the amateur career he had as well. He had a very extensive amateur career, so I'm a good fighting family, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again on Friday.
And providing, he goes to plan, gets a good win, impressive win on Friday, what kind of fights are out there for him?
I'd say there's some big fights for him, but as I say, I think one of the reasons, going back to what you were saying, one of the reasons why he's not getting those fights is he's not really a big talker, and he's incredibly talented, as what Paul said. As I said, I thought he was a standout performance in the last show in Rainton. People just don't want to fight him. That's what I would assess from that. But he's very highly ranked. He's got this fight here, and then surely it's going to be world titles for him next.
Do you think that he's a bit avoided?
For sure.
In the division?
Evidently, yeah. For sure.
He's one of them fighters you're not going to want to fight voluntarily. You'll have to fight him when you're forced to fight him.
Yeah.
So he might have to just work his way into the mandatory positions with the governing bodies.
Do you think that he can turn things around and get sort of some noise around him, get the sort of hype around him that a lot of people who are less experienced, not as good records as him?
I think that's a collective effort. You've got to keep winning, you've got to keep doing your bit, you've got to have a good team around you, pushing you, getting you out there, getting your name out there. And I don't like the way fighters sometimes will do something just to be noticed and just, something stupid what isn't really them. I'm happy he's staying true to his word and true to his personality, but eventually the fighting it can't not do the talking for you. If you keep winning, eventually your fighting's doing the talking for you, because no one can beat you.
Well, someone who there is a lot of hype around, Joe Laws, he knows how to build the hype around himself. What do you make of him?
Joe's he's nuts, isn't he? You never really know what to expect with Joe. I mean, but he does seem to be maturing as a boxer. I mean, he had the upset against Ryland Charn. I think that kind of woke him up a little bit. He's as I say, when he runs around with his crazy dressing gown on and the hat on and the mask, the sombrero on, he's still got to remain what he is. He's an entertainer. He sells a lot of tickets. He can't ever move away from being an entertainer, but he has to take boxing seriously, and I think he has. You can see that in his body shape and the way he's training, and he wants to achieve things. He wants to win titles, and he has to, again, like him, he can't slip up at the moment. I know he's only young, but because of the upset he had against Ryland Charles, I don't know what you think, Paul. It was a bad performance against Ryland Charles, and I have heard that there was things outside, but regardless of that, he got knocked out, and it can't afford to happen again if he wants to start winning titles.
Exactly, and it's similar to what we said with Ritson. He's had his bad nights, and he can't afford any more. The same with Joe Laws. Lewis Ritton's been British champion and won the Lonsdale belt outright. Joe Laws is yet to do anything like that, so you cannot afford any more slip-ups. But I think away from the cameras, he's a nice kid, and he's willing to learn. He wants to learn. He wants to be a better fighter. I've spoken to him privately, and I know he's very respectful, and he wants to learn the game, and he wants to be better, and he wants to improve, and constantly asking people's opinions around, and people who are his peers or who are involved in the game. I like that from young kids. Young prospects coming through. You want to know the opinion of your fellow fighters to see whether they think you're improving, and you want an honest answer. And the honest answer I've given is he's always improving. He's just got to keep improving more of it, keep selling tickets, keep fighting. The stuff outside the ring, it's not my cup of tea, but that's him. But that's how he does it, and it sells tickets for him. And good on him, because every little bit helps when you're in a few bob when you're fighting. So again, let's see the Joe Laws show on Friday. It'll be one we can remember, probably, knowing him. He'll have something up his sleeve, and we'll see on Friday.
Yeah, do you think that he he sort of rates well in the welterweight division domestically? Do you think he's sort of? Do you think other fighters are looking at him?
Probably not. No, he's just a prospect coming through.
For sure.
And that's it. There's no shame in that. We were all prospects when you turn pro. Listen, Pat McCormack's a prospect until Friday night probably, and then he'll be thrusted right towards the top. But that's because of his extensive amateur career and how good he is. But Joe Laws hasn't got the experience in the amateurs of the McCormack twins or some of the other fighters that are coming through. So he's got to do it the hard way. He's got to learn on the job, and that's a tough thing to do, as he's found out already with Ryan Shorten.
But he was still like he's a name, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like he's a name, and people can still think, oh, well,
he was a big kid once as well. He's lost a lot of weight, hasn't he?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He's still sort of developing into his own body weight, his own size and shape, and again, you know, there's no real rush with him. As long as he's selling tickets the way he's doing, then he'll always be welcome on the shows from promoters, and that's a good thing. You can gain a good fan base, sell a lot of tickets, make a few bob on the side, and hopefully you can keep impressing in the ring.
It's going to be a good night. Just a final word on how good the atmosphere is going to be.
Oh, the northeast, as Paul said, they back their own. They're all barking mad. They make such an atmosphere. I went to watch Lewis Ritson. I can't remember who it was even against. I think it was the one he lost. It was the European title fight. The atmosphere was the best. The ring walk was one of the loudest ring walks I've ever experienced in my life. It literally put hairs on the back of your neck how loud it was. And I really hope with all these the new crop coming through, Mark Dickinson, Pat McCormack, Ben Reese, I hope together they're going to make an enormous atmosphere on Friday. Can't wait for it.
It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be great. It always is. I love the Geordies. I love being up here. The Northeast is a great place for boxing, and has produced some very, very good fighters, albeit not many world champions, which we need to see more of, and it's criminal that it doesn't happen. And as I said before, you know, if you can just find one that'll lead the way, it'll just domino effect, it'll snowball, and they'll get a lot more world champions that the Northeast, a proud fighting area and region, can be proud of.
It's going to be good. So that's Friday night, the 25th of March here in Newcastle. See you there.